are going to be making Zentangles for our art. A Zentangle, it can be kind of a Zen form of art or something that can be used to calm you, can be very therapeutic. I have attached in this post an example sheet of some different patterns that we may use. You could also search online for different Zentangle patterns as well. But I just attached a idea sheet in case you needed ideas of some patterns to include in your artwork. Before we begin, some materials that you may need are just a blank piece of paper. If you don't have a blank piece of paper, just grab a notebook paper. That will be just fine for this. I do have just an extra piece of paper underneath my piece of printer paper here, just so that my Sharpie doesn't bleed through. So you can use a Sharpie. I've also got a Papermate Flare pen, but it's basically very similar to a thin point Sharpie. And then a pencil. If you don't have the Sharpies, a black marker, black colored pencil, just pencil would be fine too. Whatever you have at home, you can make it work. So you are going to start, just put a small dot lightly in each corner. And then I want you to kind of connect the dots, but instead of doing it with a straight line, we're just going to kind of add a wavy line. And this is just going to be the border to our artwork. And then within this kind of square rectangle that we have, we are going to add a few other lines. You want them to be very not geometric. You want them to just kind of flow throughout the page. And you don't want to add too many, as we will be adding a pattern in each one of these spaces. So you don't want your spaces to get too small. You're just adding some lines to break up the different areas that you have within your artwork. Okay, so that looks good to me. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get any areas that are too small, as I had said before. So I'm going to now use my markers and I'm going to add my patterns. A lot of times this is done black and white, which is why I'm using my Sharpie and my fine point black pen. And I just am going to use these two to vary the widths. The first pattern that I'm going to add, let's see, I am going to do kind of like a fish scale pattern. And you want to be very slow and deliberate with these lines. And this project is not about the finished artwork, but it's more about the process. It is very relaxing. I find that it is hard to talk here as I'm doing it because I am becoming so relaxed as I am doing this. Okay, so I have my fish scale pattern and I could leave it just like this, or I could add some other things to it to make it a little detailed. And I think I am going to add a few more lines to this. Okay, so I finished my one pattern. I am going to move on to another area and I'm going to do another pattern here. The pattern that I'm going to do now is just going to be some overlapping lines. So I'm just going to be making parallel lines throughout this section, and then I'm going to overlap some of them. And I always feel like I have the most control with my lines when I draw towards myself, which is why I am kind of moving the paper as I am drawing my parallel lines. then I could leave it like this, but I think I'm actually going to shade in some of the negative space here. So with Sharpie, what I do is I will kind of outline the area that I want to color in first. And then I'm just going to take and draw lines next to each other. So instead of going back and forth with my marker, I'm just going to go in one direction here. And again, if you are using Sharpie, make sure you have something underneath your paper so you're not bleeding through onto your work surface. I would hate that if you're working like at your kitchen table, you've got Sharpie on it. Okay, so please make sure that you have something underneath your surface. I know we have messy mats at school, but if you have some kind of scrap paper at home, find something there. Okay, so now that I'm finished that, I'm going to move on to another area, and I'm just going to keep filling with patterns of my choice. I can use patterns on this sheet here that I attached. I could use patterns online that I found, or I could make up my own patterns. There's no right or wrong patterns to fill your Zentangle with. Again, this is just supposed to be a project that is supposed to relax you. Just be very mindful of your patterns that you are making and share those pictures with me when you have finished. I want to see what you guys are working on. I'm so excited to see what you guys get accomplished from home. I've added a different pattern to each section here using my black markers. I did do a little bit of shading in this section with my pencil just so you can see what that looks like if you choose to incorporate pencil into your Zentangle. I will give you this week and next week to work on these. Please take your time with your patterns, be intentional, and try to just let this process relax you.